Alrighty, hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to today's session. Glad to see so many of you joining us today and so many chiming in about Ben's haircut as well. Great to see so many of you have followed us for long enough that you're here to witness this momentous occasion. So to start things off here, my name is Drew Demokas. I'm a creator and developer advocate, and today I'm joined by Ben Radcliffe, Senior Technical Specialist for Media and Entertainment, who's going to be leading today's talk. I'd like to turn things over to Ben to get things started on today's talk. So Ben, if you're ready, please take it away.
All right, here we go. Yes. Shared screen. Hello, everyone. Yeah, welcome to Road to Real-Time Environments. I'm Ben. This is my old hair. This is my new hair. Again, media entertainment technical specialist. Here's my contact information, guys. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions in the future. Ben Ra at Unity or on Twitter at Light and Alchemy. And about me, 20 years visual effects, worked all over the place, did a bunch of crazy stuff, worked on everything from Star Wars to Veggie Tales to Avengers. So let's get right in. We're going to blast through the introduction today. We had a lot to cover. So some assumptions for today, guys. General knowledge of Unity is assumed. We're not going to go over intro to Unity. We're not going to do a UI. We'll do a little rehash of older topics and we'll do some new topics. Again, familiarity with DCC tools, Max, Maya, Blender, C4D, Houdini. You don't need to know those tools very in depth, but I just an overview of like what they are and how they work in the pipeline. And we'll go over a lot of this today. And familiarity with 3D assets. We're not going to teach the basics of how to make a model, a texture, or character in animation. It's really about getting your content into Unity. The most important thing today is for you to have a story to tell. And that's kind of what this series is about, is going through the end-to-end storytelling process in real time. So let me hide my little taskbar here, hide floating meeting controls. There we go. So we have a lot of high-level topics today. So we're going to do a lot of mini demos in the beginning, and then we're going to kind of bring it all together, hopefully, and we're going to try and do that VR presentation that I failed in the first session. So again, we'll do a little road to real time, but we're going to cover environments. We'll do some stuff on file formats. We'll take a brief look at ProBuilder. We've looked at that in the past. But the main thing I want to show you today is FBX round tripping, how to get your stuff to Maya and back, or Blender, but we're going to use Maya today. We'll talk a little bit in depth in prefabs. I know some of you guys might be Unity users, but the journey I want to take you guys is content creation. I want to take you down my path for those. We're really focusing on the path for people who are used to a traditional CG pipeline. And I want to show all that magic of why prefabs are pretty special and why they're so special in real time. And then we'll take a look at Polybrush and some scattering tools. I'll do a little in depth on HDRP visual environments. I get a lot of questions on that. I want to make sure people are clear and are able to, at least we'll do a deeper dive in HDRP, but I want to make sure people can get their stuff looking pretty slick today. And we'll do a little physical camera and exposure talk. I'll again show the recorder. Everyone keeps telling me they didn't know about the recorder, so I'll show that again. And we're definitely going to get the XR location scouting working today. So it's a lot of topics to go through. We'll keep it pretty high level, but feel free to ask questions. So road to real-time rascals. We'll keep this brief. You guys have come to my sessions before, and I have more in depth on the project in previous sessions. But I wanted a project to really explore how real-time can be used in storytelling, in linear storytelling, which, traditional animation, episodic animation, feature film animation, or animated shorts. XR, this will end up here. It's like, I think XR and storytelling is going to be this huge untapped medium. And by XR, I mean VR and AR. And then interactive storytelling. I really am passionate of playing a lot of stuff about on the cloud. And I have a little bit.ly link here you guys can explore. And just like you said, you don't need to take notes. And all these slides and resources will go live on my Twitter at 6:05 p.m. So the Road to Real-Time webinar series, you're here, you guys know about it. We've already done 2 sessions. We did pre-visualization, and then last time we did timeline for animated storytelling. Here we are in environments. The next one will be the 18th, and it'll be my colleague joining me, Chris Redman, who is he's a software developer and a pipeline engineer from DreamWorks, and he now works at Unity. He's the head of our solution engineering team. So he's going to do a technical deep dive of pipelines and getting things in and out formats, a little Python, a little this, a little that. So I highly recommend you join us for that session. Real-time rascals. This is the first time you're joining us. I built this little asset pack for you guys. And it consists of 4 characters. I've got a badger, I get Jasper the badger, Shanks the frog, Apple the panda, Sydney the rabbit. They're available on the Unity Asset Store. And part of this asset pack, I built some environments for you guys. I built a little cornfield scene that we're going to use today. I have a little movie studio void sequence that I use, and then a little rooftop city sequence. So today we're going to explore the cornfield. And if you want them, they're available on the Unity Asset Store. So just click this little link or just go to the Unity Asset Store and search for Real-Time Rascals. It's about 2.9 gigabytes, so it's a bit of a hefty download. And don't worry, you don't need to follow along today. It's going to be a lot of high level stuff, and we'll send the video out after if you want to go step by step. So we're going to start here with world building. Everyone says about world building, and we're just a little common language to get started. When you think about telling a story, chances are you're imagining a world where people spend their free time exploring and reveling in your creation. A story world with a distinct look and feel, that's world building. We had a great conversation at work yesterday about that. I'm like, this is what real-time brings to the table. I mean, you can build environments in different software, but to go into an environment, to build it, to experience it in real time, it's pretty magical. And I think the goal for us with world building is to build your world and then shoot a story within that. And as assets get smarter and tools get bigger, I mean, you could film an entire movie in Red Dead Redemption, and that's kind of our goal, is to build these, rich, compelling worlds that, come alive. I wanted to throw this in here too. This is a little thing from the past. This is one of the first big environments. This is from Star Trek II, the Genesis effect, or is it Star Trek 3? I can't remember. I think it was Star Trek 2. But this was actually done by Lucasfilm and a little computer division inside Lucasfilm called Pixar. So this is long before Toy Story. They made this one of the first little procedural fractal worlds on film. So let's dive in. We're going to start bare bones and assets. I've gone over some of this in the past, but I'm going to go over this a little bit more in depth today. And Chris will go really in depth next week. How do I get my stuff into Unity? Unity is a real-time engine and it's an editor. It's not really a content creation tool, although there are more and more content creation tools every day and those worlds are converging. But you really want to start with Maya or Cinema 4D or Houdini or Blender or Max or Modo or any other CAD program. There's tons and tons of what we call digital content creation tools. And the way to bring your stuff into Unity is, you can just get assets off the asset store, our Unity asset store. Like you can start with my Real-Time Rascals kit. Another way is to bring through the FBX file format. Another way is the Alembic file format, which is a standard for animation in animation and visual effects production. And then there's USD, Universal Scene Description, which is Pixar's proprietary format, which is really picking up steam, especially with the Omniverse announcements the other week. But really any DCC 3D format, Max, Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D, Modo, Lightwave, Cheetah 3D. I'll show some examples today. A lot of this stuff you can just drag and drop in Unity. I'll give you a little demo. And Unity will be magical. If you have like Maya installed and Unity installed, you can drop a Maya binary right into Unity and it'll convert it on the fly. And there's other legacy formats. I brought an OBJ in the other day that was working. And if you have CAD data or work in an industrial company, we have this thing called Pixie. So it'll pretty much convert anything into a format Unity can read. And most importantly, it'll bring metadata. So we're going to take a quick look at industry standard formats, and I'll show a demo of bringing these in real quick. But we have Alembic, USD, and FBX. Alembic, this is one thing I'm always going to say is a lot of people work in visual effects and animation, and the main file format they have is Alembic, but it's supported by a pipeline, and they don't realize Alembic is raw geometry. It doesn't have any textures. It doesn't have any lighting. It's pure points. It's polymesh points, camera, face sets, X-forms. There's no material support with Alembic. And one little caveat, Unity, sub-Ds are not currently supported real time on the GPU. So you're saying like, okay, I built my stuff and I want to bring it from Alembic into Unity. What's my solution? How do I get those materials? We do have in the package manager in the film and TV toolbox a material remapper tool. And what it does is it'll export something out of Maya as both an FBX and an Alembic. It's kind of a double footprint, but it'll use that naming convention to automatically remap the FBX bindings onto Alembic. USD is Universal Scene Description Format. It's the new hot format from Pixar. It's not that new, but it's getting more and more steam. And it's more than geometry. It's geometry, it's light, it's materials, it's animation. It's really all the stuff you need. It's picking up steam. Some studios have adopted it. It's not industry widely known, but I'll give a demonstration of how to bring stuff in via USD tonight. And there's some great resources I included in the documentation. And then we're going to look at this little download kitchen asset. There's some nice sets that Pixar provides as sample files. And then 98% of the stuff that's in a game engine, whether it's Unity or others, it's called FBX. And this is the old Filmbox format. It's been around since about 1996. It was from Filmbox, a product from a company called Kidera Filmbox. And it has geometry, it has skeletons, it has light. It doesn't have, I don't know if it has lighting. It has materials, it has shaders, cameras, textures, it has all this stuff. And I'm going to show you how to bring this into Unity. A lot of people don't know when they bring in an FBX. There's animation, there's skeletons, there's materials, and there's textures in there. So let's take a look at some assets. Let's jump right in, and I'm going to go to my scene here. So we have just a basic scene, and I'm going to start with, let's start with Alembic. I want to show you this. Let me hide this real quick. Oh, I'm going to move this, slide this little guy over. I downloaded some stuff on the internet today, and if you want to use Alembic, the main thing you need to do is you need to add the Alembic package, because Alembic's a specialty format. It's not there by default. You have to add it in the package manager. It's a verified package. So you just go to the package manager, and I'll be doing this a couple of times tonight, and type for Alembic. And you can just install that there. And once you install that there, I have this little Alembic download right here. And this is the Alembic Octopus, which is the logo of the Alembic file format. And I got this off the Alembic website. So to get an Alembic, I made a little folder. We can just drag and drop our ABC right in here. And you can see it just brings in this ABC because I have this Alembic. Otherwise, it will give you an error. And then you can just drag and drop it into the hierarchy. And this is what I wanted to show you is it's just geometry. Notice it comes in pink. That means the materials are broken and has no materials. So to fix that, I'll just drag this little red material on here. And now we have a red octopus.
Hey there, Ben. Do you mind if we back it up for just a bit?
Sure.
Sorry, I just got a question in our Q&A about the bit.ly URL of Magic VCam in your slide a couple pages ago. Would you mind just posting that in the chat for the...
I can't copy and paste it now, but it'll be on my Twitter, and it's a link to it on our blog post. So I won't be able to copy and paste into the chat.
Okay, that's cool.
But the slides are being shared tonight. I like that you're excited for it, though. But the slides will be shared on my Twitter, and at the end, I'll see if I can copy and paste it in. Cool. Any other questions?
I think we're good for now. That one was just pertaining to something that we just passed. Cool. So, all right.
So we have this Alembic, and it's just an ABC format. I want to show this. All it is, it's just a vertex. It's just points moving. It doesn't have any material. It doesn't have any description. But you can just drag this in, and then when we get into our animation workshop, we'll show how to do Alembic timelines and stuff. But Alembics are pretty straightforward. It's just an ABC file. I want to show this too while I have it. You get on the Alembic site, you actually get this Alembic Octopus Maya binary. So I want to show this as an example while we're here, where I can just drag and drop this Maya binary into our project. And just for those who are new in Unity, just so you know, this is just a mirroring. Our project window is just like the Explorer, so I can drag stuff in here as well. But I'm going to drag this octopus in. Actually, I'm going to drag it in here. It'll be more fun. But I can just drag this Maya binary into that Alembic folder as well. I should put it in the geo. And you can see it's doing a little grinding, and it's taking a moment. And what it's doing is under the hood, it's actually converting it to an FBX format. Ooh, and now that I'm on doing it, here we go. Ooh, that made me worry there for a moment. But it's just going to convert it on the fly. So you can drag and drop 3D Max, Blender files. You can just drag and drop all that stuff right into Unity. Look at this. There we go. And now it's just here in an FBX. So we have the MB file. Let me hide my floating panel. I have this little MB file, and I have this ABC file. You can see I drag and drop this in, and the scale is a little bit different, but here we go. It's just a FBX file format, and it has all the different things of an FBX, where it has a little anim file. Cool. So that's that. So let's take a look now at USD. I've already gone and I've downloaded the kitchen set, which is in the resources, and I've copied and pasted in here. And it just has the assets as a USD format. So I went to the package manager, And I went and got the USD package. And again, this is in preview package. So here's a little caveat. If you're not seeing this, this is a new thing. Just as a little heads up, I'm on Unity 2020.3.6, which is the LTS version, which means the latest stable release version of Unity. If you're in this, you might not see this. So just a little thing, in the project settings, you'll need to go to Package Manager and say Enable Preview Packages. And what preview package is, it's kind of like a beta. It's just not verified for all the platforms yet. So if you're not seeing USD, you want to make sure that you enabled preview packages. You can go and install that, and it gives you this little USD menu right here. So what we want to do is, let me extend my window so you don't see my little octopuses. Go here, and I'm going to say import as a game object. It's going to ask me to find that USD file. I'll go to the kitchen set, and you can see that little .usd, and I'll say open. And so I just want to show you this because a lot of people come to me and say, it's not open. And this is a little unclear. So it doesn't load the payloads. It has this whole hierarchy, and it doesn't load all the geometry. You can defer the loading of this geometry, kind of like if you're used to Katana, where you kind of unwind things. And you could say, go ahead and say load all, and then you have to hit this little refresh button here. It'll say, okay. And then here we have our kitchen seat. So we have this all brought in as a USD. And this has materials, it has skeletons, it has lights, it has all kinds of stuff. You can see everything has default colors, unlike that octopus, which was just pink. I'm going to show you what's really special about USD really quickly. And I highly recommend, if you want to learn more, go to the Pixar site and download this asset. But it has, what I really excited about this is, I can go to this crayon right here. It has variants. It has shading variants and geometry modeling variants. So I can change it to crayon. You see here, I can change it to blue, I can change it to green, I can change it to orange, whatever variant you publish. So for this, I can have a worn crayon. You can see the geometry is changing as well, where I have modeling variants. So if you're used to, like, when I worked on Transformers, we had an Optimus Prime Damage 1, Optimus Prime Damage 2, Optimus Prime Shiny and New, and we would have to publish them as individual assets. With USD, you just have the variants that you can load on the fly. And a more clear example of that would be here on this fridge. And again, if you download this off the Pixar website, you get the same asset and you can explore this on your own. The fridge has two modeling variants, a bare fridge and a decorated fridge. So it's a really powerful, exciting format. That's all I'm going to show on USD for today, but I just want to show you how to load those in, how to get that plugin. Cool. So let's go here. Now we're going to go to FBX. And for those who are new to Unity and come from a DCC and you're used to Maya, I want to show you this. So I downloaded this from Mixamo. If you've come to my workshops in the past, I love me some Mixamo. And I usually download animations from there, but you can also download characters. So I downloaded this character, and I have this mouse in T-pose right here. And I just drag and drop it in. I'll drag it in my scene. You can see, first of all, it's very tiny right here. And it's just a mouse in a T-pose, and it's tiny. So this is one of the things with FBX. I'll show you a couple of things. It's in the scene, but you need to go down here to the project settings and click on mousey on T-pose, and you have all these import options. So for example, the scale factor, if I wanted to adjust the scale, if you bring this stuff from Maya back and forth, you'll notice that we're on meters as 1 unit, and I think they're on inches or feet as 1 unit. You can change them till they match, but by default, they're different. So you can change the scale factor here without having to go back and forth, or change the scale if you want to keep the scale uniform, like at 111. So that's one thing. Also, you can go here. We've gone in the past, you can make the rigs humanoid. That's something we looked at in one of our workshops, and we'll look at in timeline, and we'll look again in animation. This doesn't have any animation, but you can also have textures and materials, and they're embedded in this file format. And they might be invisible. You come in, you're like, where are my textures? It's broken if you download FBXs from the internet. So you can say extract textures, and I can just make a little folder and say textures, and it'll pull these textures out of this FBX format, and it'll put them on disk. And there we go. And you can see it's pulling out my specular, my normal, my glossy, and now this guy has textures. And you can also extract materials as well, and I'll do that for materials. Not that he has very complex materials, but sometimes you do. And if you export something from Maya, it will embed these. So here we go. And you see it just has one map right here. But you can see now we have those textures. So now that's pretty great. I have this other one with animation. I'll just drag and drop this in as well. And you can see here, this one comes in, it's smart enough and it can find these textures. But what I want to show about this guy is on animation. This is a second asset with animation applied. There is animation under here sometimes. So FBX you can bring, if you bring stuff from Mixamo, it can bring it in with animation. So FBX is pretty powerful. There were some limitations before where you only had like 4 bones per vertex weighting and yada, yada, yada. But they really kind of upped that to unlimited, 256 or unlimited with some scripting. So you can get a lot more sophisticated animation. Just a little like thing that I'm seeing people do is most people are using FBX for telling stuff in stories in Unity in real time. If you have a lot of complex facial, a lot of complex performances, or simulation like liquids or cloth, people will bring that in with Alembic. So I'm seeing a lot of sophisticated animation come in as Alembic and most other stuff come in as FBX. But I think in the future, we're going to see more and more USD. Cool. Any questions on that stuff, Drew?
Nothing specifically for that stuff. No, all good.
Cool. So let's, I'm going to go here and I'm going to delete this here. You know what? Let's create a new scene file altogether because I want to show you, if you're in the new Unity, we're going to start here with this basic outdoor HDRP scene. We're in Unity 2020. And if you, it has this new outdoor scene with this setup already done. And we'll go through this. And if you're on an older version, I'm going to tear it down and I'm going to build it from scratch later as well. But I just want to show you, you can build this outdoor scene and we'll call it Road to Real-Time ENV. Oh, let me capitalize that R. There we go. And I'll just save that and it'll save in my thing. And when you create this new scene file, I just want to show it gives you a camera, it gives you a sun and this sky and fog volume, which we'll take an in-depth look at later in the session. Great. So let's grab some stuff from the Realtime Rascals kit right now. So I'm going to go to my Realtime Rascals. This is already imported from the asset store and it creates this little folder. And inside I have different things. I have models and I have prefabs built for you. But I'm going to go into the models. I'm going to go into the environments. I'm going to go into the cornfield. I'm going to turn my icons up because it's, power of real time. And I'm just going to drag and drop this cornfield right in here. And I have this pre-built as a model all for you guys to explore. So you can grab this as one big chunk and bring it right into Unity. So let's jump back into our slides for a moment. I think I only have one slide actually.
Hey, Ben, actually, do you mind if we stop for a quick question here?
Sure.
Cool. Fergie Pascal asks, is this pipeline better suited to HDRP or can we use URP?
The HDRP, the assets are all published in HDRP. The reason for that is the recorder and some of the stuff does not work. So the standard cinematic Unity pipeline is based around HDRP. So if you want to record stuff, but if you want to convert stuff to URP, I've converted the Realtime Rascals to URP just for building to my my Magic Leap and to building to AR on my phone. And if you need those assets, I'm going to put those on the asset store pretty shortly. But if you need them ahead of time, you can go ahead and convert them yourself or just ping me. I have them all converted. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
So I highly recommend HDRP. Plus today, we're going to look at some really fancy HDRP stuff that, we're really, because we're working in linear storytelling, we really want to push that visual fidelity. So let's start with prefabs. So this is, if you're a Unity user, you know all about prefabs and the history. But Unity, what prefab is fundamentally, it's a prefabricated object, and here it is. An asset is like a template of a game object and its children. You can use instances of a prefab to create many copies of a game object throughout your scenes. If the prefab object is changed, all the prefab instances are automatically updated accordingly. So I'm going to jump in and show that. That's not very new. I mean, most stuff can do that. Most 3D software. What's really powerful about prefabs in real time is you get to see these updates at the visual fidelity. You see them real time. So we have a basic scene. It's got kind of so-so lighting, and we're going to update that, and we'll make it look all polished at the end. But let's start with what a prefab is, because I get a lot of questions. I'm going to start with a cube, and then I'll make a complex example. But a prefab is a prefabricated object. So let's pull this cube out here and let's just do something silly and we'll just make it 0.5, right? And we'll make it 0.5 in one direction. You can see the cornfield is already a prefab. And to make something a prefabricated object, all I need to do is drag it into my project window. And you can see this now, this is blue and there's this little arrow. That means it's a prefabricated object. People are like, but do I need to name the directory? Do I need to name it? All you have to do is drag it from here, into any folder, any naming, and it'll make it a prefab. And just as an example, we'll do a quick example and then we'll do a complicated example. And what prefab does is just creates a parent-child relationship between that. So if I wanted to make any changes to one, I could change all of these in different ways. Like let's make it taller and I'll move it up a little. And then if I like that change, I can have them all different heights, but I can push these changes. I can put overrides in individual objects. But if I like a change, I can go ahead and go overrides, apply all, and it'll apply that height. It didn't apply that translation, but it applied that height on the scaling. And if you can do different things, like if I wanted to change the material, I could say, go here and make this one red, and I can make this one purple. And if I like this purple, I can say override, apply all. But notice this here, it didn't change this one because this has an override. So it's changing that base object, and there's different layers of hierarchy and overrides. So all it fundamentally is a pre-configured object that you can make changes in children of and then push those changes. So let's make a practical example and it'll become more clear. So I have all in here, I have all prefabs I made for you guys in the Real-Time Rascals. So you can see in the prefabs, I made prefabs of the characters and environments. But let's start with the models. So I have my cornfields. Ooh, and actually let me grab here. I'm gonna go here and I'm going to prefab unpack completely. And I'm just gonna grab a single stalk of corn and I'm just gonna duplicate this and I'm just gonna drag this independent. So it's just a piece of corn and I'll call it corn base. And then let's make a prefab out of this one piece of corn. So I'll grab it over here and I'm just going to grab this corn here. And again, I can start duplicating this corn. I have corn 2, corn 3. And if I make some changes to this corn and I do some scaling and whatnot, this is not a prefab. It's not blue. It just is what it is. So now I have to go, the art director says, I like that corn, and you have to go edit these individually. So again, what we want to do is we want to grab this one corn, delete this here, and we can drag this into any folder. I'll drag into assets this time, so it's a little bit more clear. And notice it turns blue. So now as I grab this guy, I can duplicate it. And if I rotate it or scale it, let's rotate it as well. I can then say apply all, and it applies it, but that's okay. So we've got that, that's basic. But what we can do is we can do tricky stuff with it and we can nest prefabs. So I went and made this little prefab of this apple earlier. So I just downloaded this apple from the internet and I made this little apple prefab. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag this apple here. Oh, where I lost my apple. So I'll just put this apple next to this little tree here. And I'm gonna grab this little corn base and I'm just gonna duplicate it 3 times, just so we have a little variety. And we're gonna get into polybrush and we'll look into duplicating it a lot more later. But what we can do is we can update this. So I can go into this object, and this is nested prefabs, and this might be new to you. You can go and I can open this prefab, and it'll give me this little prefab editor, and it turns everything white. And I can go back out of here and I can hit this little arrow, but let's go into this corn, or I can hit this little arrow. So I'm in prefab mode. I'm gonna drag this apple into this corn. So the art director, for those who work with art directors, they're crazy. They're like, I didn't say corn, I said apples. You're like, well, we don't have the budget to change it. I don't care, just add apples to the plants, it'll be good. And then so we'll grab a couple apples and we'll put it on here. Let me edit this tricky editing apples in 3D. And I'm going to duplicate one more, but you can see here already outside the preview mode. That these apples are already applied. So now we can go back to our scene and all those apples are adjusted. So now those apples are too big. I can go and edit that original prefab and I can scale that down and I can say override apply all. Well, did that not edit? Oh, did I get tricky? Something failed on me. Well, we can edit this one. Let's go into this apple right here and let's edit this. And let's move this. And now let's go prefab, and I'll say apply all. And you can see on the other two that the Apple thing. So there's a relationship between these, which is really powerful. And other software has this, but at the power of real time, it becomes really complicated. And you can edit and make prefabs out of everything. I do it a lot with lighting. I was playing earlier. You can see I have these little God ray set up here. Let me delete my sun and my sky volume here. Let me try that one more time. And I can just put this God rays in here. And you see, so I prefabricated this lighting. So you can do all kinds of powerful setups with prefabs, and you can adjust it and change it later. So let me bring back my original lighting, and I'll delete this guy. So we're going to jump back and forth. We're going to look at some polybrush stuff later, and then we'll jump back into prefabs again. But I just want, for those Unity new people, how powerful this is. And like, you know, the common thing is you can work these environments organically and change them. Imagine like making a traditional way, making an entire cornfield and then having to put little plants on them, each one individually. So that's the power of prefabs. Any questions on that, or is that old news to people? All right, I'm going to take the silence as okay, and I'm going to go on to ProBuilder. So we've looked at ProBuilder before too. ProBuilder, I said, like, Unity is a engine and an editor, but it's not a DCC, so it's not really intended for creating model. But there is a model, a geometry API, and people have built modeling tools. We have one built into Unity called ProBuilder, and I'll just show a little demo of ProBuilder. I've gone over this at my previs, but I just want to show that you can make geometry. I'll export it, I'll bring it into Maya, and then I'll make some changes in Maya, and I'll bring it back, and I'll show that process. And we have this thing called FBX round tripping, where we have an FBX exporter, and this will install a little plugin into Maya, so you can easily go back. It'll put a little Unity import, a little Unity export in Maya, so you can go back and forth between Maya and Unity very easily. And like I said, because FBX is a robust format, you can do meshes, skin mesh render, materials, textures, camera, lights, constraints, animation, and blend shapes. If you want some information, I put that here, and this will be on the slides when it goes online. So let's take a look at this. And I'm going to make a silly sign like I was doing here before. We have a little stop sign. To get, I'm going to save real quick. To get what we're talking about, you need to install a couple things. One is called ProBuilder, and it's a verified package. You can install it. I already have installed. And the other one you're going to want to install is the FBX exporter. And this is a verified package from Unity as well. So go ahead and install those through the package manager. And then what that empowers us to do, it'll put this tool here and tools ProBuilder window. Okay. And it'll give you this little editor. Notice it right off the bat, it gives you this new little interface right here. I'm going to drag this. You can drag it anywhere you want. I'm going to drag it behind the hierarchy window. And you have icon mode or you have text mode. And we're going to keep this simple. There's some really great tutorials on our YouTube channel on this, and there's lots of great tutorials online. But I'll show you the basics. One, you click this little new shape, and it has this new shape tool. And one of the positive things is it has these new primitives. So you see you have a sprite, you have a prism, and you can edit this stuff real time. It's kind of fun. You can kind of position it and edit it before you actually commit to it. There's a staircase I was showing. In previous ones, I was showing the toruses, and I was showing with the pipes. I love the pipes. And you can do all kinds of fun stuff. We're just going to start with a cube. And you can create a cube. And well, let me show you that. So you can hit build here. And what it does is it gives you an editable cube. Like the standard Unity cube is not editable. So what it allows you to do here is I can now go and edit the vertex level, the edge level, or the face level. And you can do a lot of fun stuff. Or let's get crazy and let's go get a cube. So we have a standard Unity cube. Well, and let's edit this real quick. And notice this is a little caveat. I'm in face mode, so it'll only let me select faces. So if you're ever not able to select, you'll want to go to object mode to move that cube. And if this ever gets cumbersome, usually I'll pull this out. A little workflow tip is you can just close this ProBuilder window and it'll get rid of those editing modes. So a lot of times I'll work and I'll forget, I'll be in vertex mode, and then I'll click on a geometry and I can't click it. If you want to bring it back, you just go tools, ProBuilder window. And again, I'll just drag that here. So notice I can go here and I can put edit mode and I can grab these vertex and I can start editing vertexes, or I can edit faces. You can't do that here with a standard cube. It doesn't have the ability. But what you can do is this little button right here called Pro Builderize, and you can see in icon mode, Pro Builderize. This will allow you to edit a piece of geometry from Unity, and it'll turn it into a Pro Builder object and allow you to edit it. One little caveat is you cannot edit animated meshes. It has to be static, just standard mesh. So one little thing, I'm not going to show tools. There's some great tools like, merge faces, merge edges, delete faces. And every time I show this, I really only use one tool and I love it, is let's grab this object. Well, let's get crazy. I'm going to scale this down a little bit, and I'm just going to make another a sign. Say I want a bus stop sign to go with my stop sign. You can do interesting things, like you can grab this, and I can grab this face, and I can scale the face. And my favorite thing in this tool, if you've watched my demos before, is if you hold down Shift, there's an extrude tool here, extrude faces. But if you hold down the Shift key, it'll automatically extrude. So if you're used to poly modeling, you can do a lot with it. So I'll just extrude this, and then I'll extrude this a little bit more, and then I'll scale this, and I'll scale this way. And then I'll go back to translate, and I'll hold Shift key, and I'll extrude that like that. And maybe I'll extrude one more face, and then I'll go here. And that's our little sign. And what this is really great for is I don't ever use it for modeling. What it's good is I can put this in context and in scale of my world, and then I can export the FBX into Unity. So I'll go here, and I'm going to close this little Pro Builder window here so I don't get in trouble. But I've got my sign. So now I've got that Pro Builder window. So I can say game object, convert to FBX, or convert to FBX prefab variant. So I'll convert this to, I've named it W, but I'll call it bus stop. I'll call this bus stop as well. And you can say where you put it, and it's going to automatically go into assets. It'll create a prefab. Did I step on that real quick? I think bus stop period. Let me undo that again. Let me name it here so it's named proper, bus underscore stop. And then I'll go here again, game object, export. I do it as a prefab variant because then it automatically updates like that. It'll have the magic powers of prefabs, which I just showed you. So we'll go here and I'll say prefab variant, bus stop, and I'll put it in assets. I made a little folder, so I'll put that in FBX exports, and I'll say convert. And I'll say okay. And then now it's in FBX I can bring into Maya. So you can see a stop sign basic, a bus stop. So one thing I'm going to do real quick is there's a little tool in project settings. If you want to set up like a round tripping relationship between Maya, in that FBX exporting, you can install a Unity integration. And you can just do this in the project folder. You should do it in a Maya folder, but for the demo, you can install it anywhere. Make sure I have my Maya license. Hold on one second. Oh, I got to make sure that my thing is still connected, and it's not connected. That would have been an epic fail. I got to make sure my VPN, so my Maya license is connected. It always disconnects. Here we go. Oh no, now it's asking me to log in. All right, let me, you guys can't see my password. Hopefully it'll let me in. Our top Unity security for our VPN. All right. Oh my God, and now it's calling my device and it's doing my security. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna log us in. Good thing I checked. All right, so now I've used my secret code and I'm in. So great, so we're connected to my VPN, and so I'm gonna install this Unity integration real quick. And let's go here and say install Unity integration. And what it's going to do is it'll go and it'll launch Unity. It'll open the application automatically. So we'll open this, and then I'll show you how to import it in, and then we'll show how to round trip it. So while it's loading Maya, any questions, Drew?
Yeah, we got a handful here. So just an anonymous question here. Can you round trip USD as well?
Not when you round trip. That's a complicated answer. It's a complicated question. Not in the same context I'm doing. You can edit USDs, you can import USDs, you can edit USDs, but what I'm talking about round tripping is this built-in integration. So we don't have this built-in integration. So hypothetically, yes, you can round trip, but not in the context that I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is like we have this nice little Unity importer right here. And I'll show you what this means in the full context right now. So we say bus stop and I import in, and you can see now my bus stop is at Unity scale. And what this does is, does it have my integration of my prefab? Oh, let's go here and let me select some stuff right quick. And I can say, edit some things here. Let me grab some vertex real quick. And I'll just make a simple edit to make sure that this is working. Doesn't look like it is. And I'm gonna go bus stop. And let's go Unity export. And hypothetically, it should export. Okay, let's see if that worked. Oh, and it didn't work. So let's try this one more time. So now that this is edited, I'm going to delete this real quick. And I'm going to go back to Unity. I'm going to export this one. Oh, and it did work, right? I say it doesn't work. It works. So what it does there, you can see that little change I made in Unity. So let's go back here and let's open that one more time. So I'll say import, and we'll go FBX, and we'll say bust off FBX, continue. And you can see any changes I make in here. So again, I'm going to make a simple change just for simple demonstration where I'll move that back in, and maybe we just move this whole height right up. And so I'll go back to object mode. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say Unity export. And it'll automatically export those changes into Unity. And you see here, and it magically updated. And you can just go throw new geometry in there. And sometimes like I'll just use this as a scale placeholder. And then I'll just throw entirely new geometry in here. So any changes you make will automatically be reflected. So one more time, just as a simple example, you can bring this in. And if you set this up correctly, which is a little bit beyond the scope of this, like with materials, you'll have to use a specific shader and make sure the shaders are aligned. But you can go ahead and you can basically push and pull stuff back and forth. So this is kind of what I mean by the exporting, where I can just keep going back and forth between these two. And as I go in here, you can see those changes are applied. Cool, any questions on that?
I could pop another question in here if that's okay. Just
throw another question
earlier. Greg asks, can you subdivide? This is from like earlier.
Subdivide the geometry? Like you can subdivide the geometry in Polybrush, or you could subdivide it in Maya. But for example, there are subdividing tools. There aren't subdivision surfacing tools, but there are a ton of tools in the Pro Builder window. Like for example, we can grab this face. I think I need to Pro Builderize. Oh, well, I'll just grab that real quick. And you can see here's like a subdivide tool here. You can see now it's multiple faces, and you could just do all different kinds of stuff. You can delete geometry. There's look at a whole ton of modeling tools. But as far as subdivision surfaces, no. But if you just want to subdivide polygons, yes. Cool. All right, let's jump into Polybrush, because this is the fun stuff. This is the super fun stuff. So what Polybrush is, it's from the same team that made Pro Builder, and it basically works on any mesh. And there's sculpting tools, there's vertex color painting, there's texture blending, there's mesh scattering, there's all kinds of stuff. But we're going to look at just the scattering tools today and why these are really exciting. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to close this Pro Builder tab, and I'm going to get rid of this bus stop real quick. So let's go back to our example of prefab. So I'm going to delete these prefabs that we made earlier. And then let's go to this Polybrush tool. So again, it's in the package manager, and you can go get Polybrush. It's not there by default, so you'll have to load it. And again, it's a verified package, so you can just install that. And again, it's up here in tools, and then there's a Polybrush window. And what's great about Polybrush is there's the sculpt on meshes, the smooth geometry, the paint vertex colors. And there's like this texture painting here. All I care about is this. And what it does, it lets you build these little palettes. So you can see I was playing with this earlier. Let's create a new add palette. Let's change back and forth, and let's say new palette. Let me unload these real quick so we can start from scratch. This needs to work with prefabs. That's why I started with prefabs. So That's why I also built, when in the Real-Time Rascals package, I built a lot of prefabs for you. So I made things into prefabs. So you can go to the cornfield and just start grabbing stuff. So you can start, basically what this is just a poly painting. So you just load up a palette here. So I'll just load up, let's do a simple example to start. Let's grab one rock. I'm just gonna grab one rock, and you can see if I click on this rock, there's a whole bunch of placement settings down here, and I can play with scaling. So for one, I can randomize the scale of each rock. Let me just start painting and show you first about that rock before we get into the scaling. Let me turn that off real quick. I'll just make that 1 and 1 so the example is a little bit more clear. So you select a surface and you get this little paint tool, and now I can just paint rocks. But they're all the same, and that kind of looks bad. So we don't want to do that. Ooh, what did I do there? I turned off my ground. That's weird. Let me find that piece of geometry real quick. My ground, turn on and off. Let's find that piece. Is that it right there? Oh, live demo. My ground disappeared. But that's okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to delete the whole cornfield, and I'm just going to drag it in again, just so it's not there. So let's grab that cornfield, and we're back, and it's magic. So I'm starting with that rock, and what's great here in this is we can change things like the frequency, we can change the scale, and I can put some randomized scale and some like X, Y, and Z parameters. I can have a random uniform scale. So we can change the scale big. This is kind of a tiny rock. And then I can also randomize rotation on it. And this is what I use pretty much for everything every day. So you can see I have one rock, and I'm starting to get some pretty decent randomized results. And notice what it does here is when you paint it, it paints it as prefabs, and it parents it underneath the geometry that you paint on. So let's go, and I'll undo that real quick. And there's some great little settings we'll look at, but let's load this up with some more stuff. So let's go to the cornfield, and I'll put like, a few different stalks of corn, and then I'll throw a couple different rocks in here. And you can see just with like a few variations, I have a ton of stuff, but if you want to play with it, we can add some uniform scale, and I can play with this, and I can add this variation. So we can do that real quick, or through the magic of, I can go here to one of these preloaded ones. I think I have this all preloaded. Yeah, and the way to get it back and forth is to click this little checkbox and load a brush, and to unload it, you click that little box. So let's just load it up with all this stuff here and make sure we have some variations to it. Yep, and I've set the variations for the stuff ahead of time. One little option box, make sure you have, is avoid overlap so the geometry doesn't pile on top of each other. You can see here, I can very quickly just populate my world, and I build forests. I grab that Fontainebleau kit, and I can paint forests in a matter of minutes. And we can keep doing that on each set, which is pretty powerful. And we can go ahead, and you can see I've built this cornfield over here. I don't know anything about farming. So the farm I gave you, if you want to continue that with a nice even corn, you can. But the power of this is I want to show this. So we've gone and painted this, and that's great. I'm going to close this for a minute, and let's do that demo again where I grabbed that apple. So I grabbed that apple I made earlier in prefabs, and let's go here, and I can grab this corn and just this one type of stalk. I can go and I can, again, say your art director says, I said apples, not corn. And I can go ahead and throw some apples in here. I'll have to just move that real quick, and I'll move it up. And let's go in here, and we'll just throw a couple apples just like we did before. And you can see in the background in the non-grayed out that all this type of corn, and it's only the corn type 3, is getting apples populated on it. So it's really powerful. And like I said, others, like Houdini does this as well, really well. But the power of this is you get to visually see it real time in a way you can't in other, like, we'll look at it in a moment. You can update this in fully lit environment. So we'll just throw 3 apples on here, and then we'll go here, and you can see my corn stalk is now all populated. And if I wanted to do something crazy, I could go ahead. And like I said, materials are one thing to be aware of, because if I go ahead and change the material for that apple, you can see my little apple mat, it's going to change them all because material is a dependency. So this is a little caveat for you guys. So all the materials work together, But then again, I can apply a material variant to, say these three. And then on this, I can go ahead and say override, apply all. Or I could just leave it as it is if I wanted to add material variation. So I could put different materials. It just adds a way of adding a lot of variety very quickly. So I'm going to show one more crazy thing because I love this. Is this works with characters too. So I do this a lot with characters. I recently did this with, I put it, and you can apply animation like you can to game stuff. So polybrush window, and we'll go back to our editing here. And I made a little thing with rabbits earlier, and you can see I'll unpopulate this brush. This is the main brush you're working in. This is the palette I've loaded. So this is just my Sydney the rabbit prefab. And you can see I put some variation on Sydney and scale and whatnot. But so now I can go populate this with rabbits. And I'll show you this in a moment. And you can be more clever about this. But let's go. And if you've been to my thing, I'm going to basically make the game object. There we go. I'll make the game object, which is the view through the main camera, match this. So I'll go select the camera, say game object, match align with view. And I'm just going to throw this here so it's a little bit more in full screen. We'll make this 16 by 9 and we'll keep that resolution. But I have animation applied to these guys in a game way. So I have like an animation controller. So if I hit play, you can see they all have the same little idles and the same blinks. And right now they're all moving in sync and they're different scales, but you could create, for example, 4 or 5 different rabbits with different motions. And then you can, it's a very quick way of populating background characters, which is really fun. Great, so that's pretty fun. I had fun with that. Let me go find these rabbits and make sure I delete them. Otherwise, because we're gonna do some more fun stuff. And one other thing too, real quick is, again, like I said, these are just prefabs. So you can grab these, like if I wanted to make an empty game object and I can say rabbits, it automatically parents them, but there's nothing stopping you from grabbing them and just moving them. So I'll just grab them and reparent them underneath something here. And I'll just turn them off for now. Cool, any questions?
We can get another quick question here. Mark asks, does the FBX integration work with Blender?
Yeah, and you can and what's great is, like I said, 98% of stuff is, well, the back and forth, like I showed, that's an Autodesk specific thing. But you can export you'll have to manually drag them in and then manually save over the FBXs. I mean, really underneath the hood, it's just kind of referencing that FBX and saving it. You won't have that nifty Unity export import menu, but you can manually import them and export them. But one of the great things about Blender, like I said, with that Maya binary thing I did earlier, is you can just drag and drop Blender files right into Unity. And they just come in. So I do that all the time. I've just been working a lot in animation recently, so I'm using Maya more than I have in a couple of years. Cool, so let's talk about the visual environments. I want to show you how to make stuff slick. And I think part of making your world and building your world is knowing how to do a little lighting. We're going to do a full lighting workshop, but we're going to talk a little bit about HDRP. I want to really show you how to set up that visual environment today, because I don't think people are very clear on that. So let's go here and we'll look at so we have Unity's HDRP, and that's the main pipeline we want to use if we want to make cinematics. Someone was asking about that. HDRP just gives you a lot more stuff, especially now if you have an RTX card. The DXR stuff is really fun. I've been playing with that a lot. But HDRP is a physically based renderer. The lighting is unified and coherent, and the features function independently of the rendering path. And if you're not from a games background, it means, like, is it a forward or deferred rendering path? Don't worry about that for now. We're just going to work in a we'll cover that in our HDRP. We won't go down that rabbit hole. But like what HDRP is really cool is because it uses real world lighting units, and it uses lux, lumens, and candelas, and they're just 3 different ways of measuring lighting units. Lux would be a regular spot meter, like out in the environment, like you'd have an old-fashioned camera meter. Lumens is, like for a light bulb, and if you go on Amazon.com and you look at light bulbs, it'll tell you like what its lighting power is in lux or lumens. And then we have things like candela, which is very popular for like auto for headlights. And it also works in temperature. So the light, you can just do a red light or a blue light like in normal, or you can do it in Kelvin. which is, if you come from a film cinematography background, cinematography onset lights are their temperature in Kelvin, whether it's an HMI or a tungsten. So here's a little cheat sheet right here that gives you a little sun, directional light, sun in color. You can see like a standard sun's about 120, 130 lux, and it's a 5,500 Kelvin. And it goes from warm to cool. So I found this online. I thought this is really great, where it shows you the temperature of the lighting as the time of day, where you can see it's sunset, it's really warm, and at midday it's rather neutral or cool. And Unity also uses exposure triangles. So all this is physically based. So you can use a physically based camera where you can combination of shutter speed, ISO, or aperture, just like a DSLR. You won't need to know that today, but the one thing you want to know is EV. We also work in EV, and here's a little math for that to scare you. But what it really is, it's about the old, if you come from like film photography, this is what's called the Sunny 16 rule. And here's a little cheat at that, where a full sunlight will be 16 EV, 13 EV, cloudy 9, sunset 6 to 8, standard light bulb 3 to 6, nice bright nighttime 0 to 3, and a cloudy overcast nighttime -3. And again, I put a little cheat sheet in here so you can get the slides. If you look at any photography site and say EVs, and I'll give you a demonstration just so you're aware. There's a couple little caveats where if you hit like check all or turn everything on, it'll automatically turn the EV to 0. So I'll walk you through that to make sure you're aware. Because people always come to me like, I turned it on and everything goes black. So we're going to look at the sky and fog volume. And this is what Unity builds for you when they build like an environment light. In a traditional DCC, you would have like an environment light. This builds what's based upon a volume profile, and that's kind of common in AAA console workflows. So by default, it gives a little what's called a sky and fog volume. When you build a new scene, it'll build this for you. So I'll kind of deconstruct it and show you how to build it yourself in case you delete it. So it has the sky and fog volume has multiple components. It has what's called the volume profile right here, which has that little offset, it has a little asset on disk where it saves to, similar to a material or a texture. Then there's a visual environment, then there's a physically based sky, and then there's a fog, and this is an exposure by default. So what is a visual environment? That's one component it gives you. The visual environment volume component overrides the sky type. It does two things. It says, is the ambient mode dynamic or static, and what type of sky type? And you have a few different options. You have a physically based sky, a gradient sky, and an HDRI sky. I'm going to walk you through each one. And there's a procedural sky, but that's kind of going out. It's being replaced by the physically based sky. That's kind of based off the old rendering pipeline. So the physically based sky, it's a procedural sky that simulates like a 2-part atmosphere planet, and it attaches the sun to your directional light position, and you can give different atmospheric effects. And like I did that sunrise, I made it with that, where you can put like the ground color and the sky color and the density of the air and all these things and the saturation, and you can control and make a pretty nice procedural sky. It was what was used in our Fontainebleau demo. Then there's a gradient sky, which is really simple. It's just 3 colors. And then the gradation effect between the 3 colors. I use this all the time if I'm doing like a look dev turntable and I want something clean and presentation. I did it just this weekend where I had like a dark to light fade. And then we have an HDRI sky. And if you're from an animation or visual effects background, this is probably what you're used to, where you can actually take a high dynamic range 360 image, which is it's a shot in multiple exposures, and the pixel values are above 1. And I'll break this down in my look dev workshop. We'll pull it into Photoshop and we'll look at light values. But it's a 360 HDRI sphere, and you can download it on the internet. And we give a free HDRI pack, which we'll look at today. And then there's a fog component, which is the most fun ever. Being able to do, Unity has an exponential fog, which is your standard CG distance-based fog, but it also has a real-time volumetric fog, which basically means you can do God rays, which are pretty beautiful. If you've ever done these in traditional, like I see these in RenderMan, where you render them as a separate pass and you bring them into new, you color correct them, you tweak them, you compose them. What's really powerful about Unity is the creative decision. You can just do it real time. So let's create a visual environment. And I put this extra cheat sheet I saw my colleague made, so I put this in the resources for you guys. So again, when you create a standard scene, it creates the sky and fog volume for you. And it puts all this stuff here. And we'll go through and we'll make this pretty. And just as a little example, I'm going to turn this background off so that we see the full glory of what you're getting. So this is the standard Unity sky and fog volume, and it gives you the volume component, which basically binds it to the asset. This is basically the asset. Think of it as like a material. It's on disk, and if you change this, you change that. So I just want to make sure that the relationship, a lot of people change this and then they changed it and they can't go back. It is a separate asset file, and the volume component basically reads that file. And we'll go over this a lot in depth, what's a local volume and a global volume in our post-processing workshop. So then you get to the visual environment component, and this is where you get to pick things. You can do a gradient sky, an HUI sky, a physically based sky, and we'll skip procedural sky. And then there's a component for the physically based sky, and you can start to tweak these things. You can turn them on and you can adjust all these different parameters. I'm going to turn on this real quick and just turn on the fog. And I want to show this. And there's an exposure. This isn't, when you create a new scene file, it gives you this exposure file. And you can see it just puts it on automatic histogram, which means Unity exposes like a camera. You can do it manually, or you can have it on auto like your phone. So in case you delete this, let's delete it and start fresh. And you can see it gives you a little default one, and notice it gets brighter. It's because by default, it doesn't have that exposure. They built that when you build a new scene file. It's kind of a preset. But to do it again, you can go volume, sky and fog volume, and you can create another one. And again, you can see it's a little bit brighter. It doesn't include that exposure parameter. So you just want to go to this little add overrides and add that exposure. And then I can turn it on, and you can have fixed mode. It's like I said, that sunny 16 mode. Where you go in EVs, you can use the physical camera parameters, which we'll look at in our next workshop, or you can just use automatic. I recommend for now, if you're new, just start using automatic, and that's what we'll look at today. So you have your sky and fog volume. I'm going to turn on all the options here and all the options here, and this is really great here. And what this does is it's procedural, so I can just grab my sun, and you can see you can just start playing with it, and you can. It's pretty beautiful. Right out of the box, it gives you some really beautiful effects. Like you can start to do a sunset, and you can play with shadows. I want to say this on the sun, it gives you on default, it gives you a 65K temperature Kelvin and 130,000 lux. And you can make it cooler, you can make it warmer, you can play around with it just like I told you, and you can play with the dimness and the brightness based upon that chart. It's all physically based. One little caveat I don't like is the default. I have a nice graphics card. I like to have ultra shadows from the get-go. It gives you low-res shadows for efficiency. Performance by default is our motto, but I have a strong graphics card, so I'll turn up the shadow resolution. But you can see very quickly, you can start to play with stuff and get some really beautiful effects. And that's what I was playing with, that sunset stuff. Let's go here. And I'll just play with this for a few more minutes, but I want to show you, by default, you have all this fog. I'll go through the fog real quick because you can basically go with the exponential fog, and you can see it's a standard fog, like a CG fog here. No big deal. And you can play with the height, and you can see it's like off in the distance. You can play with the height. What I want to show is this volumetric fog. This is where the magic happens. And you have volumetric fog by default. And one little caveat too, if you start to mess with this stuff and you break it, you can go right here and you can always reset it. So I'm going to turn it all on, and it's all back to default. So I'm going to turn volumetric fog and enable it. I'm going to show you this. There's a relationship between volumetric fog on this asset and through this sun. So you can turn up this multiplier here, and you can get like really nice God rays right from the get-go. So let me bring in my camera here, and I'll just show you. Like that's what I was playing with in that other thing. And you can see it. I don't know if it's really going over Zoom, but you can see those God rays. Pretty great. And it's pretty powerful. And this is something I've never been able to do as a lighting TD, is to see real-time God rays. And I can see them here. I'm not sure if it's coming across. We'll take a look at this again. But this is the procedural sky, and it's a lot of fun. And you can get some really lovely looks. I mean, that's some pretty stunning stuff real time. So let's look at some of the other types. So we have the sky and fog volume. And this is what I really want to show you is, so I want to change this to a gradient sky. It changes, but notice it doesn't automatically add the components for you. It still has the component for the physically based sky. So I can turn that off, or I can remove it altogether. And then I can go add override here. And under sky, I have to add this component. And if you're used to Unity, this component workflow is pretty standard. And notice here, like I turned everything on by default. And that's why I mentioned that exposure here. So it's, again, that sunny 16 rule. It just goes dark. So we have to expose the sky up. And it's a nice sunny day. So we'll go like a 14. And see, now it gives you, well, now we see those God rays through like this fog here, which is, whoa, that's really fun. I'm going to turn this down for a moment and turn that back to 1. And we see what we get. I'm going to bring the sun up a little higher. But just playing like this is just so much fun.
Oh, hey, Ben, just going to step in quickly here with a little time check. We got about 10 minutes before Q&A.
All right.
Just to let you know.
All right. I'm watching the time, but I'm having fun.
Oh, no, go on. This is amazing.
All right, cool. And then, so we have this little sky and fog volume, and just a little demo on this is you can change this and do some fun stuff, right? Like you can grab this here and I can create, and it'll just create some basic stuff. I use this for like sunsets and warm cartoony stuff. I don't use it a lot for photoreal stuff. I'll use it a lot for just like a dark to light gradient. Like I said, I'll go like dark in the bottom and then I'll just go like white here. Or I'll go dark here, and I'll just do something like abstract if I do like a product rendering. So that's basic there. That's the gradient sky. I'm going to remove that. And again, we go back to our visual environment and we go HDRI scan. I think this is where the magic happens. Go to our asset store. There's a Unity HDRI kit. It's all pre-done for you. And once you go here and say visual environment, you can then go add HDRI sky. And then you can go add all. And then you can just, like, if you're used to a traditional workflow, you can just add that. Notice I hit add all again in that exposure. So that's the thing, is you can add the lux, or you can add the multiplier, or you can just use EV values. I tend to use EV values. And that's why I caveat, like, let's do that one more time. Let's go remove that. If I go and add that component, if you check these off normally, right, you can go and add that Garo white balance. It'll come in normal, but like most people, they just check all and then it goes black and they don't know why. So we can put that up to 16 and you can expose that independent. You can see it's all, let me put this as a dynamic lighting as well. So you can see that gives a pretty nice photoreal lighting feel. And I have dynamic ambient lighting on. I have the HDRI sky and I can expose that up and down. I can put different lighting environments in here, different HDRIs, and that's a bit bright. And I downloaded these from the Unity website, and you just get different lighting environments. And that's why I put in this thing. I had this little cartoon background. So when I made this, I turned cast shadows off, and then I'll just go and I'll put like a realistic sky, because I come from animation. I'll put like Garo back here, white balanced. Oh, Garo, not white balance. Yeah, Garo white balance. And then I'll expose that up. And then with that cartoon sky, I get like a cartoony yet photoreal lighting effect. Yeah, so that's all I want to show in the HDRI skies. And that's just how you can build it and know about exposure and know about the different things. Any questions? We got 2 more things to go through. So we got 6 minutes.
Let me go. If I could just pop a quick question here.
Yeah.
From another anonymous attendee. How do polybrush and UMAs compare respective to character animation?
How do polybrush and what?
UMAs.
UMAs. What's a UMA? I don't know and how does it do to character animation? What you can do with polybrush is you can pre-configure like animation, and I'll go over this in my animation workshop, but you can apply like animation game controllers where you can apply like logic systems and state machines of animation, and then you can apply that to the prefab. So you can have like idles or moves or jumps or whatnot. And then when you paint it with the polybrush, it's there. So let me jump into Recorder real quick. So Recorder, we've gone over this in another thing, but Recorder, people don't realize, if you want to record pictures out of Unity, we have a Recorder. And it's not a renderer because it's already pre-rendered. So we call it a Recorder. And I made it in my last workshop, I called it like a VCR control, and someone said, what's a VCR? So let's check this out real quick. And this will be really quick, but we go here and we can say, we got to get this from our package manager again. So we go to our thing and we say Recorder, and just install the Unity Recorder. And there's 2 ways to work with the Unity Recorder. Is we can say, I can go to General Recorder, and I can pull up the Recorder window, and then you can add different things. You can add image sequences, you can record movies, GIFs, you can record out audio, and you can even record out animation. So I can just say record a movie from the game view or a camera. I can give it a resolution or custom resolution, 1080p, make it an MP4, and I can give it a name, and I can add some wildcards, and I can just record out. I'm going to open up another scene that I did before with a timeline, and that sunset scene I was playing with earlier. And you can see here, I did a little animation on this timeline, and that was in my presentation, where I just did a little animated the sun. And what I did here is I added a recorder track, and this is the second way of doing it. This is the way I like to work, is you can add a video recorder track and then add a recorder clip. When I went over this in my timeline workshop, and then I have all that same controls that I had there. So I can say sunset live, and it's going to record this clip at the same time, and it'll do it to a game window, or I can record it to frames. I'm going to do it to a movie. And then to get it to record, I just hit play. So I'm going to hit save real quick and hit play, and I'll call this sunset live. And this will actually take a minute. And then I'll hit play. And then I just have one more thing I want to show you guys is we're gonna XR this after this. But you can see I hit play and I hit record, and it's this fast. It takes a longer time to write the frames to disk than it does to render them real time on the GPU, which is kind of fun. So I'll just let that play, and you can see here, boom. And what it does is it records it here, and you can set up your own file path wherever. But if you click this little button, it'll take you to that folder, and you can see Sunset Live, and that's what I just recorded. And that's a low res thing. I usually output these guys as 4K, and I make GIFs, and there's a lot of compression. But just as a default, there you go. You can get your pictures out of Unity. All right, so we're gonna jump in for one more thing. VR location scouting. We tried this in our previs. It didn't work, so we're gonna try this again. I did this right before. I showed Drew and Estelle. I made this little VR thing. It worked. But let me show you how to install some VR stuff. And this will take a few minutes. So we'll do some questions while this installs, because I want to walk you through this step by step, because it's a little bit of a tricky process. It's actually a lot easier than it used to be. So let's just jump back into the editor for the last part. So I got to take my glasses off to put on the other. But to get XR working in Unity, it's really simple. One, I'm going to go to our build settings. Well, not our build settings. I'm going to go to my project settings. And in my project settings, there's this little XR plugin management. It's going to say install XR plugin management system. And it'll take a few minutes. Any questions, Drew, so far?
Yeah, I'll just start with our most recent one here. David asks, can the recorder record equirectangular 360 FOT VR video output?
Yeah, and it can record stereo as well. That's kind of fun. You can record, and it'll do top and bottom. So it'll put like the left eye, right eye, top and bottom format. Or you could record it out, do however you want. And there's some other third-party plugins for doing it. But built in, you can record out 360s. Like one animation studio, they were doing this with legacy render pipeline, but they were building their environments in Unity because they had it was the Treasure Checker show. They had so many environments. That was their bottleneck, was doing so many environments, where they did their environments real time. But because of the fur and they were rendering Arnold, they rendered their characters in Maya. So they built all their environments in Unity, rendered 360s HDRIs out of Unity, brought that into Maya, lit the characters with the 360 HDRI spheres, and then composited the characters from Maya and Arnold onto the backgrounds in Unity. Cool. And so one little plugin management, once you install that plugin, you pick what you want, it'll go and it'll find the platform. So we're using Oculus. I've got a Quest 2. So I'm just going to click that little Oculus thing, and it'll go and install the Oculus integration. And this whole process takes about a minute or two. Any other questions?
Yeah, of course. How do you get good quality with a recorder? I see lots of jitter most of the time.
One, it's going to be anti-aliasing. If you do the movie compression, the compressions, we have Apple ProRes coming actually pretty soon. I think, I don't want to do an announcement here, but we have ProRes integration, which will give great quality. But if you want good quality, you can record out as images as PNG or EXRs, and then make a movie in that in Premiere or another platform. All right, so we clicked on Oculus, and then it'll do this little Oculus here. And this is the tricky part I want to show you. And it has multi-pass or single pass. I'm going to go single pass instant for efficiency. So, and now we have this here, and we need to install one more thing. Here you can technically, if you want to code up your own VR, but this is where you can install a toolkit. And I highly recommend there's, VRTK, MRTK, Oculus integration, all that stuff. I'm going to install, I want to go Unity registry. If you just type XR, this is XR interaction toolkit. And this is it's our little framework, and I'll hit install. And what this is, and notice it's a preview package, so you'll need to enable preview packages. This is all the little stuff we've built for you, like the hand interactions, the locomotion, the XR rig, so you don't have to build your own 2 cameras and build a stereo thing and all that stuff. All that work that you used to have to code from scratch 3 or 4 years ago, we built it all in, and we have this great sample project for it. So this will take a second to install. Any other questions?
All right, just taking a look here. Can we control shadow fall off?
Shadow fall off in terms of this, well, there's in terms of like if you're looking like soft attenuated shadows, there are some options for what is it, percentage close soft shadows from NVIDIA. But if you come to my lighting workshop and you have an RTX card, this full ray trace shadows, and they're really great, and they're really fast, and they give you really nice fall off and soft attenuation. They work with animated meshes and everything now. I use it on a laptop, and there's no going back. And that's the great thing about recording, is we don't need to worry about, for linear storytelling, we don't need to worry about 60 frames a second or 30 frames a second. We can record out frame accurate. So if it's 12 frames a second, we can still record it out 30 frames a second. So I'm using ray tracing more and more and more, especially if I'm doing long shadows like this and you want the shadow to soft fall off, you can do ray trace shadows. Or there's the percentage close. There's some tweaks. We'll go over that in my lighting workshop.
Awesome.
I'm gonna get my VR headset ready. I'm getting excited. Make sure it works. All right. My controllers can't be found. We're coming. We're going to be in VR soon. Any other questions, Drew, while this installs?
Yeah, sure. Another anonymous attendee asks, is HTC Vive and Valve Index supported in the XR Interaction Toolkit?
So it's a different step. You should be able to use all the interaction stuff. It's all multi-platform, all the XRTK stuff. But that XR plugin, what I showed you, that isn't supported. So they haven't released it yet for our new plugin system. So you'll still need to get the whole Steam VR thing off our asset store. But the XRTK stuff all should work. It should all be cross-platform. It even does AR stuff as well. You can use some of the toolkits. Check on our site and ping me. There's a great sample project that you can grab, and it has a whole bunch of demos for you. Wow, this is taking forever.
Nice.
All right, let's do another question.
Sounds good. Can we use this for mobile AR? AR Core, AR Kit, and AR Foundation?
So this is all built on HDRP, but the assets are light enough. I put it mostly for linear storytelling. I'm going to release more asset packs soon, and I'll release a URP version, and you can use that. I built it for the Quest. I built it for AR Kit for my iPad, and I've done some AR sample projects. And I'm going to try this weekend to do Magic Leap. I haven't tried that yet.
Alrighty.
Wow. See, when I'm at home, this takes like 2 minutes. See, this is why it's good we're doing questions now.
Yeah. All right. Martin Fitzgerald asks, I've been exporting VR stuff to WebGL. Are there any updates coming?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't really been following the whole web VR thing. My colleague Antonia or Jerome are more versed in that than I am at this point. But if you ping one of us or ping me, I can put you in contact with them and they can answer your questions.
All right, awesome.
I have a backup scene if this takes forever. So we have 10 minutes, and before we leave, we're going to see this in VR. Don't worry.
All right, I guess that means we got time for another question then.
Sure.
Can XR plugin management be used for AR and VR minus HTC Vive?
Can be used minus HTC Vive. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Could you read it one more time?
Yeah. Can XR plugin management be used for both AR and VR, excluding HTC Vive?
The XR plugin management, Yes, yes. And then if you want, you can install, like on the AR side, you would either install like our AR foundations, or you would install like AR Kit and AR Core. Does that make sense? No, yeah. You still need to install the AR foundations if I'm confusing the question. All right, I'm going to jump over to my other Unity because I was afraid this is going to happen. Look at this. This is amazing. And it took no time. But we have this other scene set up, and it's the exact same scene, and it's everything is installed the exact same. So what I want to show you is if you go here, when you install that XR integration, what it does is it really gives you this XR little option box, and it lets you install different things. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, XR, and we're just going to do one basic thing. We're going to go to XR, device-based, and we'll go room scale XR rig. And so it gives us this little cube, and this is our little XR rig. This is us. So we can place this anywhere, and you see that's the little camera. And it's like, think of our little, I've been watching Community, the Dreamatorium. I think it's like the Dreamatorium. So I'll put the camera a little facing the sun, and we're not playing with any physics, so we're not going to fall through the ground. But sometimes if you play with the Oculus thing, it is a physics built in, so you'll need to have a collider. But basically we just put an XR room scale rig, we put it there, and then let's see if this other one's installed. That's still going. So once we do that, all we have to do is hit play. So I'm going to put my headset on. I've got this all matched through the Quest 2 with the link cable. I'm all linked up. So all I have to do is go here and hit play. And I get my hands, and you guys can't see it, but oh, now it's doing something weird. No, I get two applications going. Oh, I think we're working though. I've got a question mark, and here we go. We're in VR, and I don't have the hands set up. I just have the raise, but you guys can see this, right, Drew?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see we are in VR, and this is, once you do this, it's this simple. I wanted to show you is you install those two things, and then you put this XR device-based rig, and then your XR location scouting, and it really is magical and powerful. And like once you build an environment yourself, it's 3 steps to really look at it, and you can get a sense of scale. And animation studios are doing this more and more to do, location scouting for their CG sets. And we get that nice sunset with these nice long shadows. And you can go ahead and add locomotion. That's out of scope for this. I want to show you in 3 steps. Yeah, you can just add this XR integration and do some XR location scouting. All right, that worked. All right. Cool. It's cool. So let's carry on with some questions. We got 6 minutes left.
Awesome. Let me just grab a screen share here.
Let me find.
Sorry, everybody see my
let me do 2 more slides, Drew, real quick.
Oh, sure. Grab it away.
Let's go here again. I just wanted to show a couple more things, and you guys have seen this before. But again, come to our Road to Real-Time webinar series. You guys know where it is. You're here, so just carry on. If you want to do a step-by-step, I also do live sessions on the learning platform. So you can check that out. And please, please, please share your creations. I love seeing what you guys make. And follow me on Light and Alchemy. I'll be posting these slides tonight. Thank you. All right, and let's jump back to you, Drew.
Perfect. No worries. Okay.
I'm flustered. The VR worked finally.
Alrighty. Okay, I'll just get through some of our questions here. First one up, as a virtual camera operator, what kind of camera systems do you use during shooting an animated story, specifically fly camera or Cinemachine dolly track?
I'll show Cinemachine dolly track. I like playing with the Cinemachine stuff, but I have a virtual camera rig myself based upon our DMM stuff. And we have some announcements around VCams later, but I use a combination. It depends what I'm doing. I love the Cinemachine stuff when I'm just kind of blocking, because I'll just make it look at everything and I'll just move stuff around. And then I kind of build my scene. And then once I get my scene and all the stuff with lighting, then I'll go in and shoot stuff within it. Cool.
All right, nice. Okay, next up, for those of us new to animation, 3D art, expecting to need to learn to create some quality characters along the vein of Real-Time Rascals, what cheap or free tool would you recommend getting and learning? Like Maya or Blender or another one of the ones you mentioned?
Blender's great for all the asset creation. I really love Blender. I'm doing more and more Maya because I'm doing more sophisticated animation stuff. And I like the animation tools and rigging tools in Maya. But if I'm just going to build an asset, I'll just build it in Blender.
All right, nice. Got a question here from Stephen O'Hearn. I just think I need a little more context before I ask that to the group here. So Stephen, if you could add a little more onto here, is there one for C4D?
C4D.
Oh,
go for it. What was his question?
Well, is there one for C4D? I just may have lost a little bit of the context.
There is Maxon released a whole Unity thing. It's on our asset store, but they have a whole plugin for getting stuff right from C4D into Unity and getting all kinds of extra stuff. A lot of people use it for like broadcasting, motion graphics, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, C4D is great, but they make their own plugin for it, and it's pretty good.
All right, awesome. Okay, next up, what is the oldest version of a DCC you can round trip with?
I am not sure. I think I'm using Maya old. I'm using Maya 2019. So 2 years is good enough. 2 years is old enough. I think it'll go older. I think 2018 I was using before and it was working fine. And I think actually I might not need it anymore. I think the new versions have it built in, but I'm a creature of habit.
Awesome. All right, I guess another question pertaining to round trip. Is there a similar workflow for Blender?
That automated workflow, no, but you can still what you can do is you can read from that project directory because it builds a prefab. And if you write over that FBX, it's kind of a wonky workflow where you just save on top of your old file. It'll work. Does that make sense? So if you just keep saving on, it'll update that prefab in Unity. It's just a little cleaner with the Maya stuff. We have a special relationship with Autodesk because they're all in Montreal. We're all in Montreal, and half our guys know half their guys. So we have a tight partnership with the team, and especially when it comes to like FBX.
Awesome, very much. And yeah, thanks very much, everyone, for all these wonderful questions here. Hopefully we can get to them all before we're out of time here. How do you organize a team to create environmental assets without editing all over each other?
Version control system. We make one called Plastic SEM, which is pretty friendly, but you're going to want to work with a version control system where you check things in and check things out. And that's kind of more of a game. Some animation studios use version control systems, but once you come, I highly recommend checking out a version control system like Plastic. And then each artist can check it in, and while one person has it checked out, no one else can write on top of it.
If you get an anonymous question asking, why are we not embracing the chaos anymore? I'm not aware we're not embracing the chaos.
We are embracing the chaos.
Are we still doing that?
You guys put in your forms. I would love to hear your feedback. I don't think, I toned it down this time. I'd like to know what you guys prefer. If you got like a little more chaotic, a little bit more fun, freewheeling, or a little bit more serious. We're trying to find the right rhythm for this. But we didn't have any chaos tonight. Did you want more chaos? The XR worked. I think I just shortened my slides of the intro is realistically, but I would love to hear your notes on the feedback and how the sessions are going, because we kind of evolved at this time to do a little more questions in the middle and some questions at the end and kind of work back and forth. So we'd love to hear your feedback of how these workshops are going, what you'd like to see more of and what you'd like to see less of. So please fill out the feedback. And not a lot of people fill it out, so the odds are very good of you winning that Amazon gift card. Did I break the rules? Was I allowed to say? It's there.
Hard to say. All right. Looks like we have time for maybe one more question before we have to drop off here. And apologies there. But I guess for our last question, may I use HDRP without dropping frames in VR? And what are the limitations?
It's a lot of pixels. There's a great talk on our site. If you do HDRP for VR, our colleague did it. It's great. It's just when you do HDRP, you don't realize how many pixels you're pushing, especially when you're doing it interactive and you got it on like Unity, because the graphics card's pushing the pixels on the screen, you're pushing the pixels in the headset. It's a lot of pixels. So I would say that talk is great. I would say let no or less post-processing. Post-processing kills. I do HDRP VR all the time, and I get a decent frame rate from I have an RTX 3080 or 2080, RTX 2080. My 3080 is on the way. Any more questions? One more?
Okay, let's get on one more here. Is there any disadvantages to using the XR toolkit versus Oculus integration?
The hands. I use the Oculus integration because I like the hands. The hands are easily done. We don't have an easy hand setup. There's lots of ins and outs, backs and forths, whatever. I find if you're going to go to an Oculus device, the Oculus stuff is really easy. I like that player controller prefab, and I like you just literally drop the hands on. So when I do stuff for me, I'm using our stuff more and more because of different headsets. But if I just want something like I'm going to post a GIF tonight. If I post a GIF of VR, no one wants to see Rays. If I post a GIF like this and I go like this and I give a thumbs up, everyone's like, ooh, VR, and they give lots of likes and people share it. If I just have Rays, no one cares. All right. I guess that's it.
Yeah,
well,
awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Ben, as well, and Estelle, and all of our organizers. And please register for upcoming sessions. And to stay caught up, you can also subscribe to us on YouTube. And yeah, I believe that is it for me. So yeah, thank you very much for attending, everyone. Have a great day.